this gets recorded and thrown into the pre-recording so people can watch later. So it's all right if I, yeah. Cool. I think we live now. I see it recording and we good to go. So
Yeah.
awesome, man. Marcelo, my man, how you doing?
All good, Dex. Thank you so much for having me here. I know that this conversation is going to be a doozy and it's going to be super fan. So I'm excited.
Yeah, man, same here. And thank you for joining, man. This is cool. This is the first episode of the show. I'm trying to, get a feeling of recording again. It's been a while since my podcasting days, so I'm still loosening up. But yeah, appreciate you joining.
Absolutely. And boy, I didn't know that you did a podcast in the past. So
Yeah,
I feel like now I'm in safer hands.
yeah. Safer hands. Yeah, you're in good hands, man. Like Allstate. Um, but yeah, man. So let's before we hop into today's topic, which of course is being able to sustain success in your creative agency. And real quick before we get into you, because I want to talk about you really quickly and your background. The reason why this conversation I think is going to be so valuable and important is because I see a lot of conversations centered around like how you can get started, how to get your first client, how to build things, right, and the initial first few steps. But like as you grow and you start to change and the creative economy starts to evolve, like I know particularly for me, sometimes I can feel excuse me, like I'm in the middle of the ocean. Like I don't really know what to do next, you know or like it's just so much uncharted territory that doesn't get talked about. So I figured what the perfect guy to have on to talk about this has been doing this for a while is you. So so
Absolutely, man. Really appreciate it. And that's an awesome topic to talk about it, and especially like right now with the whole U.S. situation, it's always good to revisit certain, I don't know, maybe fundamentals. So talking a little bit about myself, so everybody knows, I've been running an agency for the past 11 years, but specializing in a creative technology agency for the past 3. So it's been a while, but I normally don't count my previous experience. My previous agency was a staff augmentation. So basically, if someone had an idea, I have a buddy. There you go. You pay me the hours, and that's it.
gotcha.
Uh, it was a fun gig, when we did some really cool projects. But for example, right, I already felt weird saying we did because I didn't do anything. Like the team did it,
Uh-huh.
and the level of oversight on that is super minimal.
Mhm.
So a lot of the things that we do now, right, involve a lot more creative, and they are more hours. It's like with the team, myself, my co-founder, everybody feels a lot more involved, and we truly feel like we are part of our clients' teams and achievements in that regard.
Mm.
Um, so moving from Webflow, right? I think that I'm not going to actually go into how to get to the success portion, because I think that that's kind of like what we're going to start from as a baseline, right? We managed to get these first few clients. We are rolling, and the bicycle wheel started to turn, so you're not trying to break the inertia of not having it.
Yeah.
um and specifically, um I think I'm gonna try to work it in a contrast, and have this conversation with you on hitting between when the saying, or the very common saying about if you're not growing, you're dying,
Mm.
versus the part where sometimes you need to not grow in order to be
Right.
successful.
Yep.
um and I think, without becoming this too about being a promotion for me, the first years we started friends, we were working, and just in case, guys, apologies, someone decided to start drilling. If you hear something,
All
hopefully
good.
my mic is acceptable enough to mute it a lot.
Mm.
um
All good.
so when we started friends, right, we were like all freelancers, right, doing small projects under $1,000 for 10, 20 pages, and design included and branding included, coffee, cleaning, whatever you want. I mean, I'll do anything. But as we started progressing through that, we managed to hit a very interesting stride. It's like every year, our growth was 4x.
Mm.
That is a huge growth. in terms of like what you need to do as a company, how you need to grow and be as a founder, and what you need to do when you're working with your team and how the team actually needs to grow.
Mm,
So everything and every time we hear people doing 100x and 10x and those numerals through X amount of time, we tend to forget that increased sales, increase information, increase amount of clients, and all of that. It
right,
also includes your team,
right.
your group of people around you need to be running and sprinting at the same speed as you and what you're leading the company.
Hmm.
And recently, we kind of like shifted the mentality of what we have today in the U.S. situation, where with the potentially looming recession, there are fewer opportunities in the market, or there are lower budgets, or they are like a longer sales cycle. Instead of feeling it as a threat, we said, fantastic. Instead of we're not gonna necessarily grow another 4x for a fourth year in a row. That's crazy. But we're gonna
Yeah.
take it into improvement. We're gonna make sure that our team is a lean, mean machine that actually grabs pages and awes clients in the process. And that's as reflecting on the success of that through Q1, which I can't believe is already over. Um, we came to a realization that there's a lot. Like we didn't necessarily grow in in revenue, but we grew in profit. So
Hmm.
improving the way that the team works and forcing us inside those constraints, in my opinion, is another very different way of keeping us in business, to keeping us in the process of being successful inside a creative agency.
Right, 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 right. I see, and that's really good insight. I really quick, I want to go back to what you were saying, mentioning earlier, right? Like how every year isn't going to be a growth year. Right? I think like that's something to think about. Actually, last night I seen an Instagram post, another entrepreneur. Her name is Jerisha Hawk. She talks about marketing. um, she was mentioning how some years are going to be maintenance years. So some years are just going to be years where like you don't see revenue growth, but you see growth in other areas, or you might be testing new marketing, um, new marketing, different points of like what you can leverage, different knowledges. Learning new knowledge. And so I thought that was like really interesting because I never really considered maintenance years as like an actual thing where other things need to grow, and also yourself personally, like you had mentioned too, the team. All these things need to grow in order for you to grow, right? And that's something that you had to mention a little while ago. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, then from a different angle, right? It's like I think we all, seasonally we put weight on the US, during the holidays and all that stuff. But when you focus like right after that, you can lose that weight that you gain. But then when you try to build muscle and actually improve your physical appearance, let's call it, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's not as easy as that very first period when you're losing that additional. And I feel like done properly, sometimes an organization or a company, you go through that process of super speed growth, but then you need to go into the upkeep mode, um, because you cannot keep on losing weight. You cannot increasing like crazy your company so fast.
Mm,
I feel like that's maybe why VCs also exist, right? They just throw money at a problem. Um,
mm, mhm.
and at least us, we are bootstrapped from day one. And
Right.
boy, we've been bootstrapped literally
Yeah.
$0 all across the board, thanks to the pandemic.
Right, right, right. I hear you, and same here. And so, yeah, that's something to definitely think about. And so, in your experience, like, what's something that you've, I guess, learned how to navigate? When things do get slow, like, how do you still find like success, or how do you, like you mentioned that you can lose momentum, right? Like trying to like, do other things, like whether it's growing your personal self or testing new marketing things out or hiring new team members or just kind of plateauing in general. So how do you find that momentum again to swing back in your favor?
Fantastic question, and actually, it's been a thing that I've been pondering over the last 2 weeks, um, because as probably everybody happens, right? I went into a slump. I went
Mhm.
into a not a slump, like one of the lower ends of the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship, and with slowing clients, with longer deals, missing some deals that I thought that they were like super closed. I was going into a horrible dark place, and then the first part is like taking a pause and first a few steps back and look at really like the big picture, right? It's like, even if that big picture means 30 days, it's still a freaking big picture. And the trajectory, it's always going to be somewhat improving. And if it's not, then you find all of the elements that you're analyzing to say if the trajectory is improving or not. And I realized that, contrary to 3 years ago, today we have an amazing team. Our team is exactly the team that we designed the company to have. And in
Hmm.
fact, boy, it took a while, but we have all of the skill sets that we wanted to have. Now we just
Hmm.
need to keep on improving them. And that was like kind of like the first stepping stone into coming out of that weird feeling.
Hmm.
Um, and then, ironically, my team was getting so good at what they did and what they are doing today that it was beginning to reflect on myself and my role as a CEO. And it's like, damn, if I cannot lead this team into success along with my company, am I as good as my team needs me to be?
Hmm.
So I started to use that as a fuel to find my own personal improvements, and regained a bit of that. I want to call it anxious energy, but that's my personality. It could be anything else, but that
Right.
personality, that feeling that I had on day one, where this is, I come from a engineering background. I have no freaking idea on how to draw. And if you ask me to draw something right now, I promise it will be horrible. Uh,
Hmm.
but I do know that I'm an acceptable creative director, um, enough to start something. So if someone is doing, I will make it good enough to sell it. And so I started to kind of like, at the very beginning, I started to learn design and grab everything I could about about it, and smaller projects and things like that, to have at least a level of skill and proficiency. So I started to think it in the same way with all the other skills that I didn't have, whether it be working with clients or growing accounts or doing sales and outreach. And it's like, I don't know it. I just need to sit down and actually put down the hours and do the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. You just need to do it, right? Like I think, yeah, I definitely resonate with this too because I'm currently in that slump. Maybe not the two, it's like different experiences between me and you, but I'm still currently going through it. And I think like, I know that entrepreneurship is like that. You're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs. Not every year is a winning year, and there's seasons where you go through losses, you go through times to learn, you go through wins. It's just a part of it. And I just have been thinking, like, kind of like similar to you, was like, man, like if I can't generate momentum or swing things back in my favor right now, like, am I really capable of doing doing all this, right? And I think like life just tests you like that, man. And I think just betting on my strengths, right? Just kind of and being like, all right, well, I know that what I've done in the past, I can do again. Like if so just like putting those pieces together. And something else you mentioned too is like when you first start, a lot of people don't think about this. Like, but when you first start, especially like if you're coming from zero, your back is against the wall. Like there's a whole bunch of like creative energy and just like relentless, just like grit that comes from that. And I think like that creates a whole like swing of energy for the next couple years. But eventually that's gonna stop because I think when you're winning so much and like you're seeing success, you're seeing clients, you're seeing like progress in general, just any type of progress. I think that slows down because you're not at that place no more. And I think going back to that place is difficult because you've experienced so many years of you not feeling like you're starving, right? So it's like you kind of got used to that. So I think that's another thing that's interesting too is like trying to tap into that energy when you start it is not it's not really doable. So it's like you have to figure out, okay, like what do I need to do now, being like who I am today, in order for me to continue to, and that I think births a lot of different like new ideas. I mean, that's the reason why open office exists. I'm trying to find inspiration, you know. So that's interesting, man. And like I like the fact that you brought that up because it's something that I think, you know, most people don't really even like, you know, it doesn't get talked about enough.
And I think you just said something really that really resonated. Like to like the reason to have open offices like this one is to bring this creativity and these different points of view. And I will definitely also recommend, you know, mentoring other people, like ADP List or Plato. Um, I cannot tell you how many times I actually was talking to one of my mentees. They were asking me about a situation in their lives and their work, and not 1 week after, it was something that I was going to use myself. Like my
Yeah.
recommendations and my suggestions now were put to test under my company, under my leadership, and and it was always like that. And that was like for about 2 years that I was working with them, and it was either it happened like a few days ago or it was going to happen like a few days later. And I feel like that part, and that's where I feel like keeping that creative also works with being involved in the community and helping out and being out there. You'll hear those opinions, you'll hear these different points of views, and you're going to be able to take that back and assimilate it in a different way that is
Mm,
going to open up different angles of the way that you were thinking before.
right, right. So that's another good way to like just stay, you know, stay motivated, right? Like stay inspired to create something new. That's really good to know. Is it, aside from that, like, is there anything else that you do like to just kind of, you know, stay motivated and just like create new goals as you go on through the, you know, throughout the years?
I mean, actually, I'm a very simple man of simple taste. I'm so and to be honest, I am a recovering workaholic because I honestly, genuinely love working in on my business. It's like I love like trying to find these crazy things that are difficult to do or these clients that are struggling. So I whether it is joining a community and work and being a lot in there to something else, that has been a lot um, of the things that I like to do also in my free time. But
Mhm.
when it's not that, and I'm more like a normal human being, what I try to do, I love video games. For my whole life is like my whole left arm is tattooed with video games. So sitting down and just getting a headset, getting a party with my friends,
Yeah,
and whether it's be playing FIFA and soccer games or like Destiny or Call of Duty, whatever it is. It's like those kind of things tend to give me a different perspective, um, and different dopamine hits, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So it turns off my brain. But luckily, I also have to say my wife is awesome, and we turn off our brains together to watch, I don't know, Friends or some TV show, and that really lowers me from any stress that I had through the day.
right, right. No, I hear you, man. I'm a COD guy. I play COD. I play 2K. Play, yeah, you got to, man. You got to turn off. I think like it's just it keeps me sane. You know what I'm saying? It keeps me sane. If I'm not planting plants and, you know, flowers with my girlfriend, or like, yeah, playing video games, man, like my brain is constantly going on something, man. You need to lower it. I think rest is good. That's something that I see you talk about on Twitter too, right? Like taking breaks and resting is vital for you to like sustain and come up with new ideas. But real quick, I see we have a question here. Looks like Omkar. Hopefully, I pronounced that right, man. Jeez, I don't want to butcher anybody's name. But it says, as I have recently started growing and working with larger companies slash startups, um, but I am struggling with these larger sales cycle and complex communication loops. It leads to 2 to 3 weeks of no work in between the projects. Oh, okay, I've experienced that too. So how do you guys deal with it? Marcelo, you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the outlets of the company's stress is always creating little projects,
Yeah,
always creating something stupid. And one of the requirements is to it be something that it can be done in 2 weeks. If we can nail it down in 2 weeks, then it goes into a little backlog of ideas that we have in our ClickUp boards, and it just lives there. We added
Mhm.
questions, we add specifications, but when we feel like it's a formed idea, we approved it, and it gets ready for someone to pick up. So those are the kind of things that we do in there. And funny enough, it works in multiple ways because first, of course, it's something that we do and we polish, or a technique of animating, or an API implementation, or whatever we want to do in that one project. But at the same time, it helps us see if we are really good at assessing those 2 weeks of work, and that ends up trickling down into how we improve our estimation during the projects.
Right. Okay. That's honestly really good insight. I'm
How
kind of
about you guys?
I'm kind of thinking about this question in a different, maybe in a different way, or maybe I'm reading it differently. But I'm curious to know if he's thinking like, um, when you have larger sales cycle and complex communication loops, it leads to 2 to 3 weeks of work between, right? So there's a period of time where like you're essentially working, you have no work in between, so like you're just kind of like at a stagnant point in the project is what he's saying, right? So I think like that's something that we've went through, especially with like you said, enterprise companies, where like there's a lot of like communication before it has to trickle down. I think the key here though is to kind of keep like to kind of what we do is we use ClickUp, right? And so a lot of different tasks come through, and like we try to knock out as many tasks as possible within a budget. So say for example, like we get like a monthly project or something like that, like a monthly retainer to do something. And like there would be times where like, half of the month we're not really doing much, but yet we're getting paid. Right. So I think like what I've learned from that though is just to kind of get as much out of the client as possible. It's really not because like there's nothing to do. It's just that it's not being communicated to you. So I think like just up front, just like letting them know, like, all right, well, you guys have this many hours and instill some urgency inside of them, then I think that that helps them, like kind of give you something to do in the time being. And also too, I think that like it's also a good time just to kind of tighten up your processes, right? Like you had just mentioned, Marcelo. So that way you're just kind of like always just working on something, or learning from it. So I mean, that's kind of like a really specific thing, but I think yeah, for me, I just try to knock out as many tasks as possible on ClickUp. And when I create the ClickUp boards, it's just like people just see like like a wide open task list, and I think like it just kind of motivates people just to put as much as possible so we can get the job done fast. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if anyone else asked anything. No.
I mean, I'm gonna add, while you look at that, to
Okay.
a process that we actually do at the very beginning of the project, which probably y'all are doing it already, but project management, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, for us, we put a lot of emphasis in boiling down and putting a Gantt chart, so we know this pages, this deliverable, this QA cycle, and all of that. And that especially helps to not stumble upon those 2 weeks of nothingness. That gives you back a little bit the control of being able to say, hey, if we're going to go into this pocket of 2 weeks in a month, because you know that you need to go get 5 stakeholders approval, and one of those is on vacation and overlaps, and that's okay. We already planned for that. So from the company point of view, we are already prepared for that 2 week gap. And if we stumble upon those 2 week gaps, I think that Dex, your answer was perfect on that.
Yeah, man. No doubt. I think that's definitely something to consider. And yeah, it's something that helps you learn and grow. Real quick, to another thing I want to ask you, just kind of off the top. I know people are going to ask this. This is the freelancer's favorite question. How do you get clients, right? So I think, but in context to this conversation, the context of this conversation, though, right? Like you've built a company. Let's say you've had success for 2, 3 years. You're at a stagnant place. Where do you go? Do you tap into your database of already pre-existing clients? Like, how do you fetch new ones? Like, what the pitches might look a little different, I think, when you are established. So, what do you guys do to continue to, just build new relationships?
Yeah, so I think that this is, as a company, it's not a single line solution. It's a multiple prong approach. So first, yes, the right now we are in the middle of it, so I can literally tell you what we are doing. So the first step was always reaching back to our all previous clients and ask for one referral. It's not a referral, it's not multiple, it's just one. Give me one. Um, and the referral, what the only thing that we ask them is that they give us like name and last name. That's it. And it's like they need to be happy, of course, with us. They will send the referral, and we're not, of course, going to talk to that guy until we are introduced. But with the name and last name, then that goes into our CRM, and we'll try to find where that person works, who are their contacts, and if that person normally is going to be a referral for us, it means that it potentially has further down the line referrals. So that begins to create a circle of leads where that one person already opened up probably 4 or 5 potential additional leads for us. So that turns into a here's the warm introduction from my client. So we'll start working with him. Ideally, will turn out into a project. But if it doesn't, then we already have a recommendation, so we can use that person to get an introduction to someone else. And that kind of like is our first round of lead feeding. Um,
Mm,
then, of course, is lead building. We don't use, and I don't think we'll ever use like any automation in kind of like bombarding emails like in the thousands. Right now, it's myself, my co-founder, and my account manager that we just grab a few people every week. We do the research on the company, we do the research on them, and we try to reach out to them through LinkedIn. If anyone has a different connection, right, or we know email or we know their contact number, we'll call them and do anything else. But it's still the same process. It's like we
mm,
find a few of them and we make it personal. Um,
mm.
and that's the most scary part. Is like that's horrible for me. It's kind
Yeah.
of like picking up the phone and I don't know. This is maybe something Argentinian from like when I was a kid. I had to pick up the phone and call the girl that I like at her house, and the guy that's picking the phone is her freaking father. And it's like, hey, can I talk to your daughter? And who the fuck are you? It's like
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
This is the same level of nervousness for me. It's like picking up the phone call and it's like, hey, hi, this is Marcelo. Am I talking to Dexter? And it's like, yeah, what the fuck do you want? I'm
Yeah.
working. It's like I always get that kind of fear, but that's it's a rinse and repeat. You just gotta do it. You
Yeah. Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
put your best foot forward with your research, so you don't come out as a heartless salesperson that is just clogging their time.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I'm with you too, man. Like, I try, I tried cold calling. I'm more of an email person, man, but I definitely was on the phones when I first got started, and it's the most anxiety ridden thing. Like I've one of them that I've done. It's like, especially when you reach out to local businesses, man, because like, what do you want? Like what are you bothering me for? A website? I don't know. Click, you know. Fuck is this guy?
We always joke because the answer is, "What do you want? Your money. Thank you."
Yeah, your money. Yeah, I want your
Let's
time
start
right
from
now.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what, I want your time right now, and I want your money too. Like, damn, man, this guy's asking for a lot. But nah, yeah, man, it's just the name of the game. I think some things you gotta do that are uncomfortable, and it just is what it is. I like the referral idea though. I like that a lot. That's
Yeah,
something.
it has
Yeah,
been really, really good, and I also have heard from other agencies that they have really good success with advertising. So definitely, the paid media aspect is not something that I would say we need to say no to that from the get go. A good targeted ad, well thought, well planned, and executed. Um, I feel like that definitely probably paid some good dividends, and
yeah,
you don't need to be dishing out like five, six, $7,000 on ads. A good targeted ad, spending a couple of hundreds,
mhm,
can definitely bring you back to closing one deal, and that probably one deal already covered for the entire campaign.
yeah, yeah. No doubt, no doubt. Let's see here. Is anything in the comments real quick? I can't imagine myself on one of those calls. Yeah, man. Emails are already spooky. I hear you. Yeah, one of these boys. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Get a load of this guy. Yeah, man. I know. It's just it's ridiculous, man. But let's see. If there's no questions, we can take a little bit of Q&A real quick. Since we did get started like a couple minutes late. But if there's no questions, man. It's been a fantastic talk. I'll give it a couple minutes. If there's anything else you want to add, Marcelo, feel free while we wait.
Yeah, I'm trying to think a little bit about the success part, right? And it's like I think that I come back with also another recommendation, but it's it may be a little bit out there, right?
Yeah,
It's
go for
like what people get tempted to create new business verticals, and hopefully the term is familiar to everybody. But it's like we develop webflow websites, that's a vertical. We design websites, that's a vertical. We do branding for companies that need a website, that's another vertical. And it's always easy to increase your revenue by adding another vertical, like offering marketing or offering something that you never done before. And one of the things that we've challenged with my partner was to actually increase the revenue, but not increasing the amount of verticals that we offer. So
it.
that actually came back with really cool ideas on different offerings. That necessarily means packaging our product differently, right? What are you doing? A retainer or a maintenance or a unlimited subscription service? Like, no, those are still the same thing with a different bow.
Mm.
So, like,
Hmm.
creating a new offer inside a vertical means looking at your customers and the potential customers under a different light, like
Mm.
what type of market you're not addressing, or how you have not catered for a specific price point, or doing your effort and actually turning around. And it's like, look, if I have an agency that needs an MLE, minimum level engagement of $50,000, how do I do so I can profitably accept projects that are 10K and still deliver the quality that represents us? And instead of saying it can be done, it's like, no, there's not a question of can. It's like, how are we going to do it? And that actually brings really good insight back into the organization.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear you, man. I think I can actually kind of relate to that without adding new verticals, because the thing is too, when you add new verticals, right, you kind of, if you don't know how to do them, that means you got to grab somebody else, right? So it's like that's another thing too, is like you might be actually trying to like build something that doesn't even exist for you. I think with instead of just like looking in, like you had mentioned, to add on top of that too, kind of like the reason why Crafted Essentials exists instead of Crafted Studios is the same reason. It's just like there was already people that we were turning down, and we were like, well, I was like, well, why are we turning these down when we can just offer them like something lower, just make everything simpler, like shave off some of our process or shave off some of our deliverables, give them a simpler site, offer it to them for 3K versus our MLE of 10, right? So it's just little things like that, and still, we, instead of turning them down, we just, now we have another stream of revenue where we, instead of like handing them off to a referral, which we love to do anyway, we could just offer them something. So I think like that's something to definitely think about too, and I like the fact that you mentioned that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's literally like what I would call a different offer inside the same vertical, and it brings back so many benefits that you're not aware when you're thinking about it. That it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Uh, cool. So Chris asked a question. We got one more, and then we can get up out of here, man. I don't want to hold you too long. But what has been the most effective method when you have difficult people or peoples within a good client's company you have to deal with? Chris, man, you being the developer, man, I I know exactly what you're talking about when you're working with that. Um, so yeah, you have any thoughts on that, Marcel?
Actually, that's super interesting. So I think that there are potentially multiple answers to that because it depends on the role of that difficult person, both inside the company and inside the project. Like sometimes if you have a bad sponsor, like the person that is really paying out the project and is one of those type of sponsors that is not involved, it's a pain in the ass, and and it's a grueling process. So normally, I would say that the higher up you go, the more procedural you need to be, the more by the book, by the contract, by whatever it's holding the project together, it needs to be, and the less personal.
Mm.
Because the higher they go, the least amount of time they have. They're gonna care about the deliverable. They're gonna care about the report. They're gonna care about the final product and not how you get there. But knowing that you could have potentially a designer or an emotion artist, that is difficult. We recently had a project with uh, someone that was a creative, and they didn't really have what I would call abstract thinking. We were talking about animations, and they were telling us, "It's like I don't know what you're talking about. I need to see it." And it's like,
Mm.
but you designed the page, like this is your design. I'm just telling you, this is gonna do this. It's like
Mhm.
you should be able to imagine that much
Mhm.
enough for you to tell us is like, yes, no, I wanted to do it super fast at the beginning and slow down. You
Yeah, yeah.
you shouldn't need to see that. and
Mhm.
and, and we had a lot of headbutts, up to the point that we had to escalate it to that person's manager. And it's like, look, we this is not the process that we do. We can tweak it, but this is going to be detrimental for you. You want a faster result, and this is not conducive for a faster result. So what we end up doing actually was getting the sign off of getting an extension of time. It's like, look, this is the process that we can guarantee you that we're going to do it in this amount of time. You want to do something different, that's okay. We're not going to charge you more. We're not going to tell you, here's the project, go fight someone else. We're just going to find how it's hurting us, how it's hurting your project, and what are the workarounds that we can put.
Mhm.
But in this case, actually, it ended up becoming a really good project at the end.
Mhm.
Although we're not a fan of the animations in the end, because clearly those type of issues, personal issues with this person, show a completely different opinion in how to execute micro interactions and interactions. But we managed to salvage the relationship, and there
Mhm.
were a lot of little elements that person was holding in, that coming we call it the come to Jesus call, because it was like, stop,
Mhm.
tell me everything that is bothering you. And out of everything, all the catharsis that happened in that call, we got all of those nuggets. And we also realized that the process that we were doing QA was kind of like not clicking well with this person in their head. And that was really important for us to learn that, because
Yeah.
it wasn't terrible for us to adjust the QA process. It wasn't terrible to adjust the administrative and financial implications of that their with the main stakeholder. They adjusted without a problem. So it's like, hey, okay, if you're happy with that, I'm happy with that. Let's do it the way that your creative wants. And that way we can minimize all of these pain points.
Mhm.
And this one that already exists, you already approved the additional timeline. So then we're fine. There's
Right.
no problem. So it required some motion, some leverage, some conversations, and finessing, but it can be done. And
Yeah.
sometimes is, which it's possible it happens to Chris. It's like, yeah, sure, done. Like, you, I'm gonna minimize my interactions into the formal points, and just like, let's not let's not have that many touch points.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that professional approach, man. I love that. That sounds way more ethical than asshole tax.
Oh, because that line is a line that, like, my co-founder knows me. I'm the good guy. I'm the good cop.
Yeah.
So when the good cop goes bad, you don't want to be there in that room.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I give zero shits. It's like,
I understand.
and if we in one call with this particular client, we were ready to fire them. And it's like,
Mm.
look, this is a very simple thing. We are supposed, all of us, supposed to be happy. We're
Mhm.
supposed to be enjoying this process. If you're not enjoying it, I'm not enjoying it, and our development team and your creative team is not enjoying it, this is we still have like milestones of money to go through. That's it. We stop
Mhm.
here, give you back the money, relinquish the IP of all of this, and goodbye. Go
Yeah,
find someone that is gonna make you happy. Like you, I promise you, we'll support you either way on that part of you find some other developer. We're gonna help you onboard them. We're gonna help with whatever we need. Like because that's how we are. But
yeah.
we don't want you to be in a horrible position or in a position that you don't want to be.
100%, 100%. I also like the fact that you were able to salvage that relationship and still, like you said, to this day, they ended up being a really good client, which is nice, man. I think,
Yeah.
if you can salvage a relationship, and this world is small, man. Like the world of Webflow and design development, it's a small place, man. So you don't want to end up, lashing out via email, Chris. That's funny. Hey, hey, but like, Chris is definitely the it's definitely a good kind bad kind relationship between me and Chris. I'm the good guy. I try to come with empathy. Chris is a great guy too, man. I don't want to but he's definitely the guy that's like, nah, man, we got to do this, and yeah, he's right sometimes. Sometimes we do have to let people go, and but just like if we can salvage things, right? If we can mend and come together and figure out a solution, why not try to do that first? You save a relationship, it's you might as well if you can. So I do like that approach. Um, let's see. Speaking of reaching out, this is the last question. Speaking of reaching out, when you send the first email to a potential client, how long do you generally have to wait before sending a follow up? Uh, when you don't get a response. Oh, so the thing with follow ups, man, is like there's no real timing to it. There's no real timing to it, man. It's just like I usually like to give like a week, right? So like if I'm sending the first email out, no response, I'll let it sit for like a week. 'Cause sometimes they're busy, emails are chaotic, so sometimes your email can either, just get pushed down or it can go to spam and if by the way, if you're sending like all these on a new email, it's most likely going to spam. Like you got to warm it up a little bit. There's actually software you can use to warm it up. Um, but but yeah, anyway, like I just give it some time. So like I try just like, give it a week. They say nothing. I'll give it like a week and a half. They say nothing. I'll try it one more time, but if I'm giving no response, they're clearly ignoring me. So it's like I try to see if there's some type of like, motion there. And if not, I'm not really wasting my time too much. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, what we've done is it's always built hypothesis of those flows.
mm,
So a large company, right? If we are trying to get a project that is 6 figures, normally that company has a million stakeholders and a million people involved. And exactly what you're saying, like they're busy. They're not going to answer you in a week. So either we try different stakeholders, but and that one maybe it's a week long cycle. Now smaller clients, when you know that you're reaching to the CEO, they maybe have like 50 people. um, right now my cycle stands at maximum of 72, minimum of 48, and that kind of like keeps it. And we're still seeing if we need to, like, for somewhere lower, we need to change that cycle, but they're all kind of like written down. So for example, we are using Pipedrive to manage our sales pipeline, and it already creates all of this like follow up and touch points, um, since you send your first email, depending on the size of the company, automatically. So we kind of like have a good way of looking at that analytic and saying, oh, we need to increase it or we need to reduce it, and treat
mhm.
with that response.
Gotcha, man. That's a really good method to apply and implement, man. I appreciate that. Marcelo, man, we're on 44 minutes, man. I'm sorry if you gotta, I'm sorry if you haven't ate lunch yet. I bet, man. Had you for a little longer. Oh, there you go. You're good. Man, I appreciate the conversation. Also appreciate you guys that joined and asked some really good questions, very specific questions. Yeah, thank you, Uzo, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here, man. Appreciate it. And Marcelo, once again, thank you for the combo today.
Thank you all. Actually, this was super fun and definitely helped me out clarify a lot of ideas that were like running around in the head like headless chickens. Now they have some interesting information for me to play around and bounce back. So really appreciate the opportunity, Dex, here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, same here, man. Same here. It honestly validated a lot of thoughts that I was thinking them going down a crazy hole and in my, in my the stages of entrepreneurship. But I'm glad to hear someone resonates with it, man. So, absolutely, man. No problem.
And of course, I'm going to say again, apologies for the drilling sound. That was completely unplanned.
No problem, man. No problem. All right. So once again, yeah, I appreciate everybody joining. I'll catch y'all next Friday at 11 a.m. PST, and yeah, appreciate you guys. We will. Yeah, I'll catch up with you in the DMs, Marcelo. But all right, guys, take care.
Awesome, Blossom. Bye bye.
All right, bye.